Welcome to the Fort David Museum Workshop. Today we will explain what to expect with your visit to the museum. The management of Fort David Museum would like to present to you the special exhibition of the artifacts found in Tomb 13 called the Cacique El Quibían Malchia. The ancient cave and tomb of Cacique El Quibían Malchia. The amazing story of the discovery of the ancient tomb of Cacique Malchia began when Marcos Montezuma, a young Ngäbe man, was digging a pozo, water well, on a hill and hit a carved rock in the shape of a rectangle slab. As he hit the rock slab with his pick, it made an empty echo sound. At first, Mr. Montezuma thought he hit an old septic tank. He then used his pick to pry open and lift the open rock slab to expose what was unearthed, and to his amazement, he found the tomb of the Cacique Malchia. Mr. Montezuma went into the tomb to find ancient relics including ceramic pots filled with animal skins wrapped up with ancient writings and hieroglyphics, and gold pieces including a wooden chest gilded covered in gold next to the mummified Cacique El Quibían Malchia. After Mr. Montezuma told his friends and families of the discovery, and he reported it to the authorities. The tomb of Cacique El Quibían Malchia is in the cave that was sealed at both ends with rocks and mud. Today, the two ends of the cave are open and tourists can enter the tomb of Cacique Malchia to discover the hidden mysteries and treasures of an ancient pre-Columbian lost civilization.
I will present to you evidence of the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant found here in Panama.
So we're leaving the beach on our way to Volcán, to El Quibían's burial site that was found just a few years ago and is very interesting. Right here we are going up the mountains, passing this lovely scenery. Lovely scenery. What's that over there? Oh, wow. Anyway, where the tomb was located was on Volcán Barú. Some people know it as Volcán Chiriquí, but it's quite a high mountain, over 11,000 feet high. And because Panama is such a thin country, on a clear day on that mountain, you can see both coasts, the Pacific coast and the Atlantic coast as well. It's beautiful. We'll be there shortly. There's the mountain rising above the clouds. So here we are at the cave of the Cacique Malchia, the tomb actually. This area here was covered in with stones. You can see some of the stones here that were covering this hole, and they've been removed, revealing another entry to the tomb. So here we are at the entrance to Cacique Malchia's tomb. On the other side of where we were previously. And what happened here was that several years ago, Montezuma, a farm worker named Marcos Montezuma, was digging a well. And he hit some stone that sounded hollow. He thought that he'd struck upon the top portion of a septic tank, but upon discovery, found the Cacique's tomb. So here we are at the eastern entrance to the tomb of Cacique Malchia. There are two entrances. The other side is walled over. It was like a wall on the side of a mountain that was covered with stones. The Indians had concealed the tomb. But 5 or 6 years ago, a farm worker by the name of Marcos Montezuma was digging a well for the property owner here, and he struck something that sounded hollow. He thought that it was maybe a septic system, but upon discovery, this is what he found: the tomb of Cacique Malchia. Come with me down into the tomb. We'll look around. We'll see what's down here. The tomb. Come with me. Come on, but be careful. Okay. Ooh, this has to be jade. There were lots of gold pieces found in here too, but one of the main universities in the country seemed to have gotten authority to take those away and to protect them somewhere. But this is jade stone. This is beautiful. And further along, we have urns. And here, look at this. This is beautiful. Another one. For his long journey. They say this goes back to 500 years BC. So this is like 2,500 years old. We're standing in history, antiquity. Soon, many people will be coming here to see this grand discovery. It's very interesting. The tombstone of Cacique Malchia. Ngäbe Bugle. Here we have what looks like the thinker. Who said these people weren't philosophers?
The recent discovery of gold plates in an archaeological site located in the ancient tomb found in Panama reveals the past of the ancient history of the inhabitants of Panama. In 2011, in Panama, a major discovery was made. A pre-Columbian cemetery was discovered with the remains of bodies, weapons, and artifacts made of gold. In the Cacique tomb, archaeologists found the sarcophagus of the Cacique El Quibían Malchia. The sarcophagus is a large rectangle wooden box that was covered in gilded gold. The layer of gold varied in thickness, from a heavy sheet for the face and the wings of the two cherubs to a thin layer of the very finest gold leaf set over the sarcophagus. The four rings at the 4 feet of the sarcophagus are made of bronze covered in gilded gold. When the seal of the lid of the sarcophagus was broken and slowly lifted away from its base, There was a gasp from the archaeologists. What they found underneath was a various ancient parchment scrolls wrapped in a skin of ocelot, Leopardus pardalis, which is a leopard, like a wild cat, that is 100 centimeters big and it roams in the jungles of Panama. These ancient scrolls reveal the history of the ancient King Malchia, who lived around 600 BC. This major archaeological discovery of the great escape of King Malchia, a Hebrew prince who took the Ark of the Covenant and the ancient scrolls with his family and other Jewish royals, including Jewish priests, before the siege of Babylon around the year 600 BC. The Jewish group fled Jerusalem and went to Phoenicia and boarded 3 Phoenician ships, then migrated to the Americas, taking with them the Ark of the Covenant and the ancient scrolls. After the discovery of the ancient tomb, the name given to the archaeological department in the Fort David Museum to label and identify the tomb was Tomb 13. When the ancient Panamanian Tomb 13 was discovered, inside the tomb was the sarcophagus of a pre-Columbian king with the name Malchia. On one side of the sarcophagus was the Ark of the Covenant and the scrolls. Some of the scrolls had been written in ancient Egyptian, Phoenician, and Hebrew languages. The official file registered to this item is Alpac-2B. And this ancient archaeological specimen, dating back around 590 years before Christ, was one of the 30 rolls discovered in the excavation site Tomb 13. According to the archaeological translation of the ancient text writing on the Alpac skin, Alpac-2B, our archaeologist team was able to identify the history and the name of the king found mummified and dressed in ancient Hebrew royal robes, wearing a crown and jewelry on the body. The first Ngäbe scroll parchment from Tomb 13 translated. Translation of the Ngäbe, or Ngäbe, Hebrew, is an animal hide that has been prepared as a writing material in Jewish scribal documents, in particular a Sefer Torah, or we may call it a Torah scroll. The first Ngäbe scroll parchment from Tomb 13 translated into English from Egyptian and Hebrew. The Egyptian hieroglyphics make up a Hebrew word, or words, and names. Each Egyptian hieroglyphic is drawn in a method to read in a Hebrew pronunciation letter, so when reading the Egyptian hieroglyphics, it will form Hebrew words and names. Each hieroglyphic is pronounced with a letter. For instance, when looked at the man holding what it seems to be a stick or vase, more like a stick, upright 90-degree angle stick, it forms the letter Y. Spells out the name Jeremiah. If you look at the hieroglyphics, Jeremiah or Almar. After looking at the hieroglyphics, it reads, Jeremiah said, "There are 4 priests to carry the Ark of the Covenant." If we take a look at the hieroglyphics, it actually reads, Jeremiah say, "Ani noten le Malchia et Aaron haberet." If you look at the first bird, that is the letter A, Jeremiah said, "Ani noten le Malchia et Aaron haberet." The professional linguist Dr. Samuel Aaron Weinstein, specializing in ancient Egyptian dialects, has also been a great help translating the ancient scrolls. Various records of continual timeline of different authors preserved on the Alpac-2B, alpaca skin roll, which is one of the 30 rolls discovered in the excavation site Tomb 13. Starting with 590 BC, before Christ, the king's son, whom was identified as Malchia. The name of the mummified king has been identified as Malchia, and from what we have interpreted so far in this archaeological specimen, Alpac 2B, the Ark of the Covenant was smuggled to Mesoamerica by Malchia, his wives, his priests, and his family, using the Phoenicians to migrate.
I will present to you evidence of the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant found here in Panama.
Stories told by Spanish writers who chronicled the conquest and the ancestral customs that continue on in the indigenous villages in modern Panama are valuable sources of information for learning more about what life was like for these powerful warriors. Panama, a narrow strip of land 700 kilometers long, which connects South America with Central America.
The history of the Ark of the Covenant. According to the second Maccabees, at the beginning of chapter 2, the records show that it was the prophet Jeremiah who, prompted by a divine message, gave orders to the tent of meeting, and the Ark of the Covenant should be taken out of Jerusalem to a safe place to hide from the invasion of Babylon. Jeremiah sent the 4 priests to carry the Ark of the Covenant to a safe place in a cave. Jeremiah said that the Ark of the Covenant is hidden and the place shall remain unknown. He said until God finally gathers his people together and shows mercy to them. 2 Maccabees chapter 2 verses 4 through 8. According to the Phoenician history, the Ark of the Covenant was secretly taken out of Jerusalem around 600 BC and transported to Tyre, Phoenicia. Malchia and his family brought many Jews with him to escape the Babylonian invasion, and they all boarded 3 Phoenician ships in Tyre, Phoenicia. The Ark of the Covenant was also on board in one of those 3 Phoenician ships, and was transported through the Mediterranean Sea. Sailing through the Mediterranean Sea provided routes for trade for the Phoenicians. Also, a perfect escape route for the Jews to carry the Ark of the Covenant to a safe place, hidden from the Babylonian soldiers. Once the 3 Phoenician ships made it to the end of the Mediterranean Sea, at the Point Iberian Peninsula, they headed out into the Atlantic. The Phoenician ships departed Phoenicia with various passengers on board, and some of those passengers were escaping Babylonian soldiers. A passenger on board of one of the Phoenician ships was called Malchia, and he left the nation Phoenicia with a chest of gold and various gold relics from the region of Phoenicia around 600 years before Christ. Malchia seems to have been in exile, escaping from the Babylonians with his treasures. Once Malchia arrived in Panama, he formed a group that was also passengers on the Phoenician ships, and he set himself up as a king over them. The mummified body in the tomb is Malchia, and his corpse was placed in the tomb with the golden chest and other Phoenician artifacts. According to the ancient writings on the goat skins, Malchia set sail with the Phoenicians, and there were 3 Phoenician ships full of immigrants. The 3 ships left Tyre, the largest and the most important city-state of Phoenicia, located both on the Mediterranean coast as well as the nearby island. Their voyage went through the Mediterranean, passing Carthage, and then from Cadiz, Spain, and then 3 Phoenician ships set sail across the North Atlantic Ocean until they anchored in Laguna de Chiriquí, Panama. After the 3 Phoenician ships landed in Panama, all the passengers carried Malchia's treasures to Volcán Barú, and there they made a village they called Saraivla.
"3,000 years ago, in the holy city of Jerusalem, King Solomon ordered the construction of a magnificent temple. Its purpose was to house one of the holiest objects of the Old Testament faith, a golden chest known as the Ark of the Covenant, and the stones on which the 10 Commandments were reputedly engraved. For centuries, the stones lay safe inside Solomon's temple, but then, inexplicably, the chest and the stone tablets disappear from history. How and why they were lost is one of the greatest riddles of the Bible.
I'm absolutely sure that I know where the contents of the Ark are. The Bible says that Moses went up to the mountain to talk to God for 40 days. At which point God gave Moses, for the children of Israel, the 10 Commandments and instructions how to build a box to contain them. This box, called the Ark of the Covenant, was a box made of wood covered in gold with some gold statuary above it. If one thinks about it carefully, the box was man-made. Yes, according to God's instructions, but nevertheless made by man.
The Mediterranean Sea, 5th century BC, a great commercial network created by the Phoenicians. In hundreds of archaeological sites scattered around the Mediterranean, objects are often found that are completely extraneous to local civilizations and cultures. An Egyptian amulet in Greece, a Greek vase in Africa, a huge multitude of goods moving from one country to another and another had to be transported and traded in some sort of systematic way. And it is the Phoenicians, with their tall headdresses, their formidable ships, their skills in trading, and their courage on the high seas, who made a name for themselves in this pursuit. We'll see how the Phoenicians took on a diverse civilization of cultures and wove them together to become the undisputed lords of the sea.
The trail must start with what the Bible says about the loss of the Ark.
What is quite startling is that there is nothing in the Bible that explicitly says that the Ark disappeared. It seems to just fade from history.
And they shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, 1.5 cubits its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. And you shall overlay it with pure gold. Inside and out you shall overlay it, and shall make on it a moulding of gold all around. And you shall put into the ark the testimony which I will give you. You shall make a mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, and 1.5 cubits its width. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, of hammered work you shall make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat. Make 1 cherub at one end, and the other cherub at the other end, and you shall make the cherubim at the 2 ends of it one piece with the mercy seat. And the cherubim shall stretch out their wings above, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubim shall be toward the mercy seat. You shall put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony that I will give you. And there I will meet with you, and I will speak with you from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim which are on the ark of the testimony, about everything which I will give you in commandment to the children of Israel.
After the death of this great King Malchia, his body was placed in the tomb found in the mountains of Volcán, and with the mummified corpse were placed rolls of parchment of goat skins and many other ancient relics.
Buongiorno, io sono Massimo, ci troviamo qui nel museo world.The. Io sono un italiano che vive da 3 anni qui a Panama con tutta la famiglia. In Italia per quasi 30 anni come lavoro ho fatto il camerografo, il cameraman. E qui in Panama ho avuto la fortuna di filmare il ritrovamento di una tomba di 600 anni prima di Cristo, appartenuta al Cacique Malchia, un uomo molto importante che è vissuto qui. Il ritrovamento è stato fatto a Vulcano, a 1200 metri di altezza in una montagna che è qui nelle vicinanze di Davide, dove noi stiamo in questo momento facendo le riprese qui appunto al Museo Fort-The. E il ritrovamento di questa tomba ha portato a scoprire molti monili d'oro appartenuti a questo uomo così potente, dei bracciali, dei gioielli, addirittura delle pergamene, dove ci racconta tutta la sua storia. Qui al Museo di Fort-The in questo momento hanno portato una parte del ritrovamento, come potete vedere questi monili che abbiamo in questa teca, e tra breve porteremo in quest'altra teca che è a fianco il sarcofago con la mummia che verrà deposta proprio in questa, appartenuto all'era precolombiana, che è appunto un ritrovamento che è stato del tutto casuale, di un ragazzo che stava facendo dei lavori su questo terreno, dove stava appunto costruendo un pozzo, è ceduto una parte del terreno stesso ed è uscito fuori questa tomba con all'interno tutto questo che abbiamo descritto. E qui al Museo di Fort-The avrete la possibilità di poter osservare da vicino questo ritrovamento veramente importante per Panama. Ci troviamo qui davanti a questo castello che è il Museo Fort-The, un castello che in pratica è una ricostruzione del castello che costruì Cristoforo Colombo nel suo terzo viaggio quando venne qui a Panama, dove fondò una colonia Belén, e dove nel 1503 costruì un castello, e qui ne abbiamo una riproduzione che si trova qui nella città di David. Qui abbiamo una rappresentazione dei cannoni che Cristoforo Colombo aveva in difesa del castello. Ci troviamo davanti al busto di Juan López de Siqueira, che è stato il primo governatore della città di David. Il nome David gliel'ha dato proprio questo governatore, proprio ispirandosi ai suoi discendenti, perché loro erano appunto della vecchia città di David in Gerusalemme. Questa è la statua che rappresenta Cristoforo Colombo, e il dito sta un pochino a rappresentare la scelta di Cristoforo Colombo in questo luogo che è così speciale, tant'è vero che fondò la colonia di Belén.